Hello, my name's Austin, and I'm an 11th grader. I'm an average student, and I was wrestling when I had the accident involving my concussion. I was at a tournament in Lansing, and I was tossed into my head, lost consciousness for a little bit. Didn't really, my brain was kind of foggy, talked really slow, vision was bad, and the lights just bugged me a lot. I didn't move because I had pain on my neck, and the trainer came over, checked on me. They just ended up calling the EMS, and I was sent to the hospital. I just did not feel like myself, wasn't mentally there. When I went to school, I'd fall asleep a lot during my classes because I wouldn't be able to stay awake, and I wasn't focused, didn't remember much. When I went home from school, I wouldn't remember the day I had at the school. Didn't remember what I did, if I had homework. My mom would ask me what I did at school. I couldn't tell her because I wouldn't remember. Walking through the hallways, all the noise just bugged me.
So the first thing I remember when I met Austin, when I walked into the clinic room and he was asleep, face down on the exam table. And I remember having to wake him when I walked in, and he just looked uncomfortable to me. I dimmed the lights because the lights were really bothering his eyes and he was squinting. So looking at him, I just knew he was in a bad place. So they told me that he did have a CAT scan done, which was negative for any acute intracranial injury. And they said he just had a mild headache and he was able to drive home with them, and he was pretty okay. So that happened on a Saturday. So the next day he felt pretty good. He did rest and then went to school on Monday morning, and he said about second hour he started to develop a headache and symptoms started to worsen, but then after school his symptoms got a little bit better. What the interesting thing is about Austin's case is that it really took about 3 days for his symptoms to fully reveal themselves, because he kind of went from waxing and waning of his symptoms. I know that he did end up going to school. He stayed home on Tuesday from school, and then when he went back on Wednesday, developed symptoms again, and it wasn't, I believe, until later that evening where it was kind of like his symptoms were full-blown, where he had light sensitivity, sound sensitivity, dizziness, really bad headache, concentration problems, fatigue. He was extremely tired. So then they came to my clinic, and that's when I saw him.
When I went to the concussion clinic, I was face down, sleeping. I don't remember because I was sleeping. And then Susan walked in, and she woke me up. And then she saw that I was just squinting and the lights were bothering me, so she asked me, "Would you like me to turn off the lights?" And I said yes. And then we proceeded with the appointment, and she did all these concussion tests, make sure I have a concussion. I just sat there with just answering all the questions. I didn't know much. My mom showed Susan the video of me getting hurt, and then when I went to school, she told me that I could leave early. Assignments could be turned in a little bit late. And then she just told me to take things easy.
When I did my exam in the clinic, his neuro exam was completely normal. What I recommended at the visit was for him to have maintained complete cognitive rest for 2 days. So I didn't want him to go to school for 2 days. He wasn't to do anything physical other than gentle walking. He needed to maintain adequate hydration because that's important in headache management. And I also prescribed naproxen for his headaches. I gave him a return to learn plan for his school, for supports for the school to follow to help him in the classroom, so his symptoms wouldn't exacerbate during school. Some of the things that I recommended the school do was to give him extra time for his assignments, coursework, and tests. I also asked that he be able to eat in a quiet classroom instead of the lunchroom, where it's noisy and a high stimulus environment that could exacerbate his symptoms. And I also asked if they could dim the computer screens or any of the fluorescent lighting in the classroom for him. Sometimes I also, and I did do this for him, but sometimes kids have trouble walking in the hallways between classes during pastime because the hallways are very busy and very loud, and kids who are dizzy or have balance problems or noise sensitivity have difficulty walking from class to class. So I asked the school to let him get out a minute or two before class ends so that the hallway is quiet so he can go to his next class in quiet.
After an appointment with Susan, I went back to school. I went to the trainer's room. I asked Megan what she would like me to do. She had me, so like a week later, she had me take a concussion test. I sat in her office, did a concussion test.
Austin actually came in after his injury. It was at an away event, and had a great relationship with the Concussion Center and all of their work with us, and actually received an email from Susan letting me know that Austin had sustained a concussion and was seeing her and kind of what his state was at that point.
After the initial visit, Austin came back to visit a week later for follow-up, and he was doing much better when I saw him. When I came in the room, he was sitting up and he actually was smiling. He did still have mild headaches, but overall the noise sensitivity, the light sensitivity was gone. Every other symptom, dizziness, was gone. He did have a little bit of irritability. He did say other than the headache, but I didn't clear him to go back to sport at that visit because he was still having some intermittent mild headaches. After that, I sent an email to Megan, the athletic trainer, to notify her if she can just keep an eye on him. I asked him to report to Megan once his symptoms were completely gone. I told Austin and his mom that he needed to be completely symptom-free for at least 24 hours before he could return to sport and start the steps to return to wrestling.
So return to play is a protocol that we put every athlete through who's going from a concussion back to sport. It's increased progression stepwise, making sure that they don't have any symptoms in between. So in Austin's case, since he was going through wrestling at the time, we made it wrestling specific. For him, that meant that we started on the bike. Then we went into some general conditioning with some body weight motions. From there, we then progressed to individual drilling, which is something that they do during practice on a consistent basis. From there, they go into non-contact or very, very light contact, which we had a coach step in and do with Austin.
After that follow-up visit, I didn't have to see Austin again. I told his mom and him that he could follow up with his primary care doctor if he needed to. The contact that we had was through the athletic trainer, and she contacted me once Austin had completed his steps successfully, and I signed the MHSAA form for him to return to competition in wrestling.
I'm able to play sports now. Sometimes I go bowling with friends. I play basketball with friends.